So today I want to walk through what should actually be on a travel advisor homepage. And I want to be pretty specific about it because I think a lot of the advice out there is vague. Like, make sure your brand shines through or tell your story. But nobody's actually walking through what the sections are, what order they go in, and what each one is supposed to do. So that's what I want to do today, top to bottom, section by section. And I'm going to reference a framework called the persuasive page format because I think it maps really well onto what I've seen work on travel advisor sites. Like, it's not a travel specific thing, it's just good homepage structure and it holds up. And this isn't the one right way to do it. There are different approaches, but this is close to what I'd recommend for most advisor sites. And I'll explain why each piece is there as we go through it. I'm Justin Hinkle, and this is the Travel Advisor Website Show. So the first section is the hero section. That's what someone sees the moment they land on your page before they scroll at all. The hero section needs to do three things: state what your business does, explain how it's going to make your client's life better, and tell them what to do next, which is your call to action. Those three things sound simple, but a lot of hero sections I see are only doing one of them, or they're doing them in the wrong order. Like, the most common version is a headline that's all about the advisor. Hi, I'm so and so, and I'm passionate about creating unforgettable travel experiences. And that's kind of doing the second thing. It's gesturing at a benefit, but it's not saying what the business does clearly, and it's not making the client the subject of the sentence. The client isn't in it at all. What works better is a headline that puts the client's outcome front and center. Something like family vacations that actually feel like a vacation. Or you pick the destination, I handle everything else. That's stating what the business does and the benefit in one line. So then next is your supporting text, the sentence or two underneath the headline. That fills in who you work with and what kinds of trips you specialize in. Keep it short, 2 sentences. People aren't going to read a paragraph in this section. And then the call to action button has to be right there before someone scrolls. Not buried halfway down the page. It should be visible immediately, and it should say something specific. Schedule a free consultation. Tell me about your trip. Something where I know what I'm clicking on and it feels like a low stakes thing to do. Not just learn more, because that doesn't tell me anything. And the photo matters too. Whatever's in the background or next to the headline should reinforce what the headline is saying. If you do cruises, show a cruise. If you do family trips, show a family having a good time somewhere. The image and the headline should be working together and not contradicting each other. Then we have a problem solution section, and this is one I think is really underused on advisor sites. The idea is this: address the big problem your client has, expand on it a little, and then explain how you solve it. For a travel advisor, the big problem is usually something like planning a trip is overwhelming. There are 1,000 options. You don't know which resort is actually good versus just looks good in photos. You're not sure if you're getting the best deal, and if something goes wrong, you're on your own. That's the actual experience a lot of people have when they try to plan travel without help. And you want to name that on your homepage, not in a dramatic way, just kind of plainly. Planning a trip sounds exciting until you're 3 hours into comparing resorts and you still don't know which one to pick. Something that the right person reads and thinks, yep, that's exactly where I am. And then you explain how you solve it. And this isn't a long pitch, it's just, that's where I come in. You tell me what you're looking for and I take it from there. I know which resorts are actually worth it. I've been there. I've got relationships with suppliers. And if anything goes sideways, I'm the one making the calls, not you. That's it. The section doesn't need to be long, but it does need to show that you understand what your client is dealing with before they found you. Because when someone reads that and thinks she gets it, that's when they start trusting you before they've ever even met you. The next section is your products and services, or for an advisor, this is basically your services section. And the way I describe it is give each service a simple name, include a short description, and provide a button that leads somewhere with more detail. That's it. So for a travel advisor, this might be something like 3 columns: cruise vacations, family travel, destination weddings, whatever your specialties are. Each one gets a name, 2 or 3 sentences describing what that looks like, and a button that takes them to a page with more information if they want it. What I see a lot instead is either no services section at all, like the advisor just describes everything in a big paragraph somewhere, or a services section that's way too long and detailed. Like, you don't need to explain everything about how you plan a cruise right here. You just need enough for someone to recognize whether this is a service they're looking for, and know there's a place to learn more if they want. That's the job of this section. And buttons matter here because they give people somewhere to go if if something catches their eye. Like someone who's looking for a honeymoon trip might scan past your family travel section and click straight into your destination weddings or romance travel section. It lets people self-route to what's relevant to them without having to read everything. After that is the benefits spotlight, and I want to be very specific about this. You need to list the 3 most compelling benefits with icons and make sure they're actions, outcomes, or transformations, not things, not features, what the client actually experiences or gets. So, not I use a CRM to track client information, that's a feature. And honestly, the client doesn't care about that. Versus, you'll never have to track down a confirmation number or wonder if something is booked. That's handled. That's an outcome. That's something they can feel. Not I have 15 years of experience. Should be when you're deciding between 2 resorts, I've probably been to both and I can give you an honest opinion, not just what the brochure says. That's a transformation. You went from uncertain to having someone who actually knows. 3 is the right number for this section too. More than 3 and people start skimming. You want the 3 things that if someone read only those 3 things, they'd have a pretty clear picture of why working with you is better than planning on their own. Icons help here too, not just because they're decorative, but because they visually break up the section and make it easier to scan. People's eyes go to icons. So if each benefit has a quick little visual marker, people can quickly move through all 3 without it feeling like a wall of text. Next, we want to describe our process. That's how you work. But psychologically, you want to make this easy for the client to understand what you do. Step 1, schedule a consultation. Whatever your call to action is, that's your step 1 every time. So the client can take action. Step 2, that is all the work you and the client do to plan your trip. So everything that goes into step 2, that's your full planning process. Step 3 is the happy after, what the client experiences after the planning process while they're on their trip. And the reason it's set up like that is because going into more detail is just going to overwhelm the client. You want to psychologically make them see that it's easy to work with you. You're going to make the process easy, and all they have to do to get it started is to reach out. It's your call to action. And then after that, we come to the feature section. And this is described as a section that seals the deal. The way I think about this for travel advisors is that this is where you get specific about what's included. Like, what do people actually get when they work with you? So this might look like a list: access to supplier relationships and rates, a custom itinerary put together for your specific trip, someone to call if something goes wrong, no fee for a consultation, whatever applies to how you work. The things that are part of your service that someone might not know to ask about. So this section is about justifying the decision to buy. For travel advisors, that's worth thinking about because a lot of people don't fully understand how working with an advisor works. Like, they might not know you don't necessarily charge them more than booking direct, that you're compensated by the suppliers. Or they might not know that you have access to perks and upgrades they couldn't get on their own. So this section is partly just informational. Here's what this actually looks like. Here's what you get. Because sometimes people don't reach out, not because they're not interested, but because they're not sure what they're getting into. And spelling it out takes away that uncertainty. Testimonial spotlight comes next, and I want to be specific about what makes a good one. Each testimonial should address an objection, talk about a specific problem you solved, and bring up an outcome or result. And you use 3 to 5 of your best ones. And best ones, that's a pretty high bar compared to the typical "she was amazing, highly recommend" thing you see on a lot of sites. And the reason that we set that high bar is that a vague testimonial doesn't actually do much. It tells me someone liked you, and that's nice, but it doesn't tell me anything I can relate to. A testimonial that says, "I was trying to plan our first cruise and had no idea where to start. I'd spend weeks researching and was more confused than when I started. Working with her, we figured everything out in a couple weeks, and the trip was exactly what we were hoping for." That one is doing real work. I can picture being that person. I can see the problem, I can see the solution, and I can see the result. If I'm in a similar situation, that testimonial is what makes me go, okay, let me reach out. So if you're collecting testimonials and you want them to actually be useful on your site, it's worth guiding people a little when you ask. Ask them what they were trying to figure out before they reached out to you. Ask what the process was like. Ask what the trip ended up being. Left to their own devices, most people will write something short and general. But if you prompt them with specific questions, you'll get something a lot more usable. And the Google reviews point I've made before still applies. If you've got good Google reviews, link to them near this section. They carry a kind of credibility that testimonials you've selected yourself don't, just because people already know that you curated those. Next, there should be some kind of an FAQ or an objection buster section, which is one of the most underestimated sections on a homepage. You use it to bust common misconceptions, answer recurring questions, and this is an SEO thing, sneak in some keyword phrases. So for travel advisors, the misconceptions are real. A lot of people genuinely think working with a travel advisor costs more than booking on your own, or they think it's only for luxury travelers, or they think that you have to know exactly where you want to go before reaching out. Those are real objections that keep people from reaching out. And this section is where you address them head on. So something like, do you charge a fee? And then an honest answer about how you're compensated. If you do charge a fee, be upfront. Another question could be, what if I already have a destination in mind? Can I still work with you? Yes, obviously, here's how that works. Or what's the difference between booking with you versus just using an online booking site? And then you explain the value, the expertise, the relationships, the backup if something goes wrong. The keyword angle is worth mentioning too, though I don't want to go too deep into SEO in this episode. But basically, the way people phrase questions when they're searching for a travel advisor, do I need a travel agent for a cruise? Or is it worth using a travel advisor for Disney? Those phrases can show up naturally in your FAQ answers. And that helps Google understand what your page is about and what questions it answers. So the FAQ section is quietly doing SEO work while also addressing real objections. And that's a good use of one section. And the last section before the footer is another call to action block. You should repeat the call to action from the hero section and encourage people to take action. It's simple as that. And I think this is really important because by the time someone has scrolled through all of the problem solution, the services, the benefits, testimonials, FAQs, if they're still reading, they're probably pretty interested. And you want to meet them right where they are with a clear next step. Don't make them scroll back to the top to find the button. So this section is short. A line or two or copy, ready to start planning, let's figure out where you're going, and then the button. Same button from the top, schedule a free consultation, or whatever your primary call to action is. And this can also be where you address any final hesitation. Like if there's something people tend to wonder right before they reach out, is the consultation really free? Or I'm not sure I'm ready to commit to a trip yet. You can speak to that briefly here, just enough to make the click feel easy. And then the footer, clean and simple. Your name or logo, links to the main pages of your site, contact info, social if you want it. The footer is where people go when they're looking for something specific and didn't find it elsewhere. So you just want the most useful stuff to be easy to find there. There's no need to overload it. Okay, so let me run through those in order one more time so it's clear. Hero section at the top, what you do, how it helps the client, and a call to action before anyone scrolls. Problem solution, name the problem your client is dealing with and explain how you solve it. Services section, your main offerings, simply named, short descriptions, buttons to more detail. The benefits spotlight, 3 client-focused outcomes with icons that show what working with you is actually what working with you actually feels like. Features section, the specifics of what's included. What do they get? This is where you seal the deal. Testimonial spotlight, 3 to 5 specific testimonials that address objections, describe a real problem, and show a real result. And then your objection buster FAQ section, bust the misconceptions, answer the recurring questions, and do some quiet SEO work at the same time. And the call to action block, repeat the button from the top so people who've scrolled all the way down have somewhere obvious to go. And then your footer should just be clean, simple, and useful. That's 8 sections plus a footer. And I know that sounds like a lot, but most of these sections they're not long. Benefits spotlight might be 3 short bullet points with icons. The call to action block at the bottom is 2 sentences and a button. The hero section is a headline, a sentence, and a button. You're not writing an essay for each one. You're writing just enough for each section to do its specific job. And what I like about this is that every section is earning its place. Like, it's not just a list of things that sound nice to have on a website. Each section is answering a question the visitor is asking as they scroll. Does this apply to me? Do they understand my problem? What do they offer? What do I get out of this? Can I trust them? What are my hesitations? What do I do next? That's the sequence a real person goes through when they're evaluating whether to reach out. If your homepage follows that sequence, you're basically just meeting them where they already are. So if you want to use this as a checklist, pull up your homepage and go through it section by section. Which of these do you have? Which ones are missing? And for the ones you have, are they doing what they're supposed to do? Is the testimonial section actually addressing objections and showing outcomes? Or is it just a couple of nice quotes? Is the hero section putting the client first, or is it leading with your story? You don't have to fix everything all at once. Just find the biggest gap. Usually it's either missing testimonials or a weak hero section, and start there. Okay, so that's what I've got on this one, and hopefully having an actual outline like this to reference makes it a bit easier to think about than just a general list of things to include. I'm Justin Hinkle. This is the Travel Advisor website show, and I'll catch you in the next episode.